I'm gonna go over 9 things I wish I knew when I started on LinkedIn. If I knew what I'm about to show you right now back in 2018 when I first started, I would have grown so much faster and made so much more money. Item number 1 is that nobody cares about your content. When I first started posting, I was terrified that everyone was staring at and judging my content. This is what's known as the spotlight effect. We all think that people are looking at us a lot more often than they actually are. This is true generally, but especially true when you're publishing content. If you can get over this, you're already ahead of 90% of people. And whenever a founder comes to me feeling this fear around posting often, I have 3 responses for them. 1, you don't have an audience yet. So your whole goal with posting on LinkedIn is to build distribution for your product, to get in front of more people. So you want to get in front of more people, and you're not right now. If you're worried about posting too much, you don't really have an audience to annoy yet. Number 2, not every follower sees every post. I wish that was the case. That would make this whole thing a lot easier. Only about 30% of those followers are seeing your posts on average. So again, if your whole goal is to build an audience and distribution for your product, you're shooting yourself in the foot by not posting more often and giving yourself more chances that outliers get in front of more people in your audience and also break into new audiences. And my third response here is, are you really going to let the fear of being cringe keep you from building your company? You started a company in the first place. That's a lot more scary. It takes a lot more guts than posting a piece of content online. And posting content online is what's going to help you build your company and make this into a success story. Are you going to let your fear of what your second degree connections think on LinkedIn keep you from doing that? I recommend for most founders who are starting on the platform to go with 5 times per week. If you're posting consistently 5 times per week, Monday through Friday, you're going to have success on LinkedIn. And if you feel nervous about this, start with 2 times per week and then ramp up. I wouldn't stay at 2 times per week forever, but go from like 2 to 3 to 4, ultimately to 5. And then once you get really good at it, you can go to 7. And if it makes you feel any better, I often get the response, I see your posts all the time. Great stuff. I don't think I've ever had anyone tell me, dude, I see your posts too often. They're annoying. Like, shut up. No one's ever told me that. So this fear that people are actively judging you is pretty unfounded. And anyone that has bigger problems. So please don't let this imaginary boogeyman keep you from building your company. Lesson number 2 is that founder-led content is better than company-led content early on. Both have merit, and I'm not saying company accounts are completely dead, but if you're starting from scratch, I would almost always recommend posting from your account as the founder versus your company page. When I first started off in content, I was running brand social accounts for companies like Triple Whale. That was my last job before I launched my agency. I was running their LinkedIn, Twitter, all the social stuff, and I was running their brand account. It worked pretty well, but while I was doing it, I kind of noticed things shifting more towards personal brands. And one of the reasons why I think the brand account even worked well in the first place there was because we had a lot of team members and other personal brands on the timeline as well. If it was just the brand account, I don't think it would have done as well. And then when I started getting other companies coming to me to work with them, they wanted me to write for their founder accounts. Like I helped Adam Robinson launch on LinkedIn. I had to convince him to start posting, but now he's like the poster child for this stuff. And pretty much everyone now is starting with the founder account. And the reason is quite simple. People want to follow people on social. When you're early on, nobody knows your company. You don't have a brand yet. So leaning into your founder account, especially if you already have some credibility in your category, is a great way to get around that and start getting distribution early. So my advice here, if I was starting from scratch on LinkedIn today, I would post from my founder's account. I wouldn't waste time on company pages until I had an established brand already. The third lesson is that follower count generally doesn't matter. I'd rather you have 5,000 high quality followers than 50,000 fluff followers. If you're on LinkedIn, you're likely selling B2B software or services. Those are high ticket, high average contract value, and you don't need a super high volume of those buyers to make a damn good living and build a very successful company off the platform. You're not marketing to the masses, you're marketing to certain decision makers at companies who can actually afford to buy your product or service. Like you look at a lot of these people who have 100,000, 150,000, 200,000 followers on LinkedIn, and they're always the same. It's like, here's how to build your personal brand, and it's like they're selling you some PDF on how to build your personal brand, so you can then go and teach other people how to build their personal brand. It's this weird pyramid scheme. But if you're selling an actual product and like software, you don't need to play that game. A really simple heuristic I like here that comes from Sean Purdy is it's better to be known well than well known. A lot of people fall into the trap of trying to be well known. Again, get to 50,000, 100,000 followers. And that might work if you're going mass market, but if you're selling to a sophisticated audience, you want to be known well. You want people to know you deeply, understand what you offer, understand that you have deep expertise in your specific category, and they're going to be willing to hand over a lot more money than if you're just posting fluffy content. Lesson number 4 is you've got to have a clear answer for the golden question. The golden question is, what's one reason why someone in your target audience should follow you? Not 5, not 3, one reason. All the founders who win on LinkedIn have positioned themselves around a specific topic. If you look at my content, for example, I have one mission. I want to teach you how to win with B2B content marketing. That's it. If I can be known for nothing else except for that, I'll be able to build a successful company. If you look at someone like Adam Robinson on LinkedIn, he's teaching software founders how to grow, and he's positioning himself to be a resource for software founders, which aligns nicely with his product, our B2B. And to make sure you have an actionable step step here, I'm gonna give you a framework. I call it content market fit, and there are 3 components to this. You wanna pick one topic that's relevant to your product, relevant to your ICP, so ideal customer profile, and something that you have credibility in. The best founders nail those 3 things, and that's when you have content market fit. So for example, say you're a former VP of sales at Snowflake and you launch a SaaS in the go-to-market tech category targeting revenue leaders. You'd position yourself as a go-to resource for sales leaders, and it makes sense. You've got the credibility from your hypothetical experience at Snowflake. The content is related to your product you're selling in the go-to-market tech category, and your ideal audience, revenue leaders, would care about that topic. So you have all 3. Lesson number 5 is to use winning formats. A lot of times when platforms introduce new features and new formats, the algorithm will tend to boost them. You saw this on Instagram when they rolled out stories and they rolled out Instagram Reels. Both of those formats, even Reels to this day, tend to get boosted in the algorithm and give you a really good chance to go viral. On LinkedIn right now, there are a few of these formats. The first one that I'd recommend is short form video. They just rolled out their TikTok style, their Reels style video feed on LinkedIn. They are pushing video content quite heavily. So if you're good on camera, if you can speak to the camera one-on-one like I am right now, just sit down and record some videos in a short form vertical format and post them to LinkedIn. They'll perform pretty well if the content is relevant to your target audience and has that content market fit that we just talked about. I'm also seeing carousels still perform quite well. They had a golden era back in 2023, 2024. They're not as cracked, but they still work pretty well. By the way, real quick, shameless plug, but if you want more content ideas and playbooks and stuff to use to grow on LinkedIn with your content, I have a newsletter that I send out every single week going a lot more in depth than I can here in these videos. If you want access to those blueprints, I'll leave the link in the description. It's totally free. I send it every single week. People love it, and it's honestly my favorite piece of content to produce every single week. I put a lot into it. So would love to see you in there, and I think it'll be really helpful if you want to use content to grow your audience and get distribution for your product. Lesson number 6 is to always think, would someone share my content? An easy framework for this that I love is think in Slack groups. So would someone in your ideal audience see a piece of content that you produce and feel compelled to share it with a team member or their founder in their Slack channel? This is helpful because 1, platforms tend to incentivize shares in the algorithm. So if people are sharing your content, it's going to get boosted quite a bit. And 2, if people are sharing your content in back channels, or people will call this dark social, more people are seeing your content. So how do you actually make content shareable? One tactic I love is to share savable resources and templates. People are always trying to save templates and resources to use in their own work. Like I shared the idea of, hey, here are 5 LinkedIn content ideas you can steal. People love to save those and use those in their content calendar for the next week. Or if you're running a SaaS that helps people automate their outbound, you might share, hey, here are 10 proven cold email templates that helped to generate 5 million in pipeline in the past month. A simple framework here is to use power words in your hooks and in your titles, like framework, blueprint, checklist, workflow, all that stuff that gives the impression that something is inherently shareable and savable. The second way to create shareable content is to say the quiet part out loud. There's oftentimes topics that people don't feel comfortable posting about themselves or don't know how to articulate themselves, but when they see it on the timeline, they're like, oh my gosh, someone finally said it, and they share it with a friend, a coworker, their boss. For example, if a marketer sees this video that I put out and has been trying to get their CEO to post on LinkedIn and to use founder-led content in their marketing strategy, but hasn't been successful, maybe this video articulates that argument better than they ever could. So they're going to send that video to the CEO. And what you got to realize is oftentimes you were your own ICP at some point. So if you just think about when you were back in that role, so back when I was a content marketer, a social media marketer, what is something that would trigger me to share a piece of content? The more you can think through that lens, the more effective your content is going to be. If nothing else, if you create truly shareable content, you will win on social. Lesson number 7 is that your hook is everything. I cannot emphasize this enough. So many great pieces of content have been buried beneath a bad hook. I want you to treat your hooks like Mr. Beast treats his YouTube titles. He'll spend hours, if not days, thinking about the packaging, the title, and thumbnail that go into his videos. So one tactic I love to make sure your hook is on point is don't just go with the first idea you come up with. Write at least 3 variations of each hook, because oftentimes that second idea or third idea is the best variation. Or what also happens is the best variation ends up being a combination of elements from the 3 variants that you tried. And just to give you an example of what a great hook looks like, here's one from Adam Robinson. He's a master at hook writing, and there are a few things he does in this example here. So first of all, using a story-based hook. So on November 22nd, I declared RB to be dead. Even within that sentence alone, there's another lever. So negativity bias, like why is RB to be dead? Humans are wired to look for negativity more than positivity. It's just an evolutionary mechanism. So you can tap into that in your copywriting. I also like how you use specific monetary numbers, like 100K a month in marketing spend, 4.5 million in ARR. That tends to work well. And he also frames the post as a listicle. So here are the 5 changes we made that led to our biggest ARR gains yet. So the list inherently creates an information gap. Somebody has to keep reading to know what the 5 items are. So all of this goes into getting someone to click the see more button. This this is the level at which I want you to think about your hook writing. Item number 8 here is to turn the dial up on your content by 20%. Here's what I mean. Look, a lot of B2B content is terribly boring. You got white papers nobody reads, webinars that nobody watches, and even the thought leadership content, the founder-led content that a lot of these companies are producing is very safe. It's stale. They're not actually sharing a polarizing opinion. And the best marketing is slightly divisive. You don't want to be extremist for the sake of being an extremist, but you want to have a specific stance, specific point of view that people might disagree with you on. And what this will do is it'll inject more personality and authenticity into your content and just make you stand out more, and people will remember you. So for example, this post that I wrote 2 years ago when I first started my agency Compound, I thought core values were stupid corporate HR slop that didn't mean anything. Just do great work, right? Another variation of this hook that wouldn't have been nearly as compelling would be something like core values are actually important. Here's why. It conveys the same idea. The hook that I ended up with actually just conveys it in a way that has a lot more personality and gets people engaged. But notice how it's not so far that nobody's actually going to get mad at this. A lot of founders are terrified that somebody's going to read their content and then cancel them on LinkedIn. Very rarely is that going to happen. In most cases, you're fine. If you add a little bit more personality to your content, you might rub one person the wrong way, but you're going to build a lot more fans and people that are actually willing to buy your stuff. Finally, number 9 is to manually fill your audience with the right people. When you're first starting on LinkedIn, you're not going to have an audience outside of a few connections from earlier in your career. Better than nothing, but not by much. And a lot of founders I talk to deal with a cold start problem in their content. They post great content, but they don't get any engagement because they don't have a follower base. So that content gets no reach for months, and then the founder gets discouraged and ditches LinkedIn because they think it doesn't work. Growing on LinkedIn does take patience. I'd recommend committing to this for at least 6 months, but you can make the process go faster if you do things right. One strategy that I love here is manually sending outbound connection requests. So you're going to manually search people in your target audience and send them a connection request. The reason why this works is when someone accepts a connection request, it's a mutual follow. So they're pretty much opting in to see your content. The next time you post, it's pretty likely they're going to see it. And assuming you follow the advice in this video and on my channel, your content will be good. So then they'll engage. And now when they're engaging, they're going to be served your content again and again and again. And now they're in your flywheel. And this approach also lets you be more targeted. So for example, if you want to reach VPs of product at Series A companies, you can go find those people, either manually just searching on LinkedIn, or you can use Sales Navigator to build a list. But you can find these people on LinkedIn and send them connection requests and just brick by brick build your audience full of people that are your ideal customer. So as far as actionable steps here, send 20 outbound connection requests per day. There's an upper limit that you can do on LinkedIn, so 20 per day is going to be your limit. And when you send the request, just send a blank connection request. You don't need to do some weird personalization. You don't need to add a message. The only exception here is if you meet someone at a conference or you know someone otherwise and it makes sense to add that context. But if you're just doing this in your daily motion, send a blank connection request. It's actually going to perform better and it saves you time. So it's a win-win. An important note here, do this manually, not with an automation. I know there are automation platforms that can do this for you. I've heard some people have success with them, but I'd recommend just doing it manually. It's only 20 outbound connection requests per day. It'll take you 10 minutes. And that way you don't run into the risk of getting your account locked or banned. And a quick bonus tip here on outbound engagement. If you come across someone in your target audience that does post on LinkedIn, add them to a spreadsheet so you can go and comment on their content every day. And again, just get in front of them more and more. Now, throughout this video, I've mostly covered things that haven't changed. So fundamentals that I used when I first started on LinkedIn and still work to this day. But as we speak, something is going on right now on LinkedIn that I never could have predicted when I first started. It's pretty much on easy mode. And anyone can blow up and get traction on the platform and start building an audience for their product. But you got to know what you're doing. Luckily for you, I've made this video going over everything that's making it easier than ever to grow on LinkedIn this year and how to navigate this opportunity so you can take full advantage of the opportunity to grow your audience and get distribution for your product and leverage LinkedIn the right way for your business. So I'll see you in the next one.